Hey, this is John.
And Nancy.
I feel like you're my co-anchor. Nancy
Sure.
has been reading Katie Couric's new book, so
Yeah.
I feel like I'm here with Katie. Hey, thank you for hanging in there. Speaking of radical acceptance, we were having technological difficulties, and Tim Williams, who's a whiz at so much stuff. And by the way, if you did not know, the woman who's often on the video right now, when you tune in, is actually Tim's wife, Brittany Williams.
Yeah.
And we used to work with them back in the day at Menlo. So he helped us get on, and we're talking about radical acceptance. We're just a couple days out from Christmas, so we're sitting in front of our Christmas tree and want to talk about radically accepting our family. And so glad that you are here. Thank you for tuning in. I think every family has folks. Nance, can you hand me my phone?
Sure.
Thank you. Good morning, Rhea. It's nice to know somebody's out there. I was just, until you sent that in, I was not exactly sure if we actually had somebody on the line or not. So thank you. This time of year, we deal with family a lot. And we've had to think a lot over the last couple of years about what does it mean to radically accept family. And obviously, it doesn't mean to agree with everything that somebody in your family does. It does not mean that it's possible to be intimate with everybody in your family. And it may well be that this year, as Christmas comes, there is an empty chair around the table for one reason or another that is a heartache for you. Almost always with families, there will be some folks that are just difficult to accept. When I was growing up, there was a character in our family who I will call Aunt Eunice, not her name. She wasn't even a real aunt, but she was just one of those kind of prickly, difficult people, always around at holidays. When my dad was growing up, she was around back then, and he said she would say things to him like when he was a teenager, "Oh, John, it looks like your skin is starting to clear up." And it felt like even things that were intended to be a compliment were really difficult to take. And often it can feel to us like, well, I would be able to radically accept the people in my family if I just was in a different family that had different people in it. Gosh, great to see everybody here. Good morning, Rick. Hey, Lynn. So glad that you're tuning in. But we don't get to be transferred into a different family. And I think sometimes about families in the Bible, we can romanticize the Bible a lot. But when you ask yourself the question, which family in the Bible do you wish you were in instead of your family? It's actually hard to come up with one. The very first family, Adam and Eve, had two sons and one of them killed the other one. So that's a low bar for a family. And then you go on from there, Abraham and Sarah and Hagar, and that whole situation is a train wreck. And then Jacob and Esau, two brothers that can't stand each other. And then Joseph and his brothers being sold into slavery. And it just goes on from there. David is a mess as a father, and Solomon is worse. So the Bible is filled with very, very real characters, and God works with people, even though their families are a real mess, to try to bring the news of his family to earth. And then finally, we come to Jesus. And you might think that he must have had the perfect family because he was the perfect person, but actually, his family had lots of stresses and strains. Hey, Kevin Penry, nice to see you. Charlene, man, wonderful to see your name there. And Michael Anderson, gosh, this is so much fun. Greg and Corinne. Um, when Jesus was just being born, his mom, Mary, was told, a sword will pierce your own soul, that there will be pain in your life because of this child. And then the first episode that we read about, the only one really when he was a child, when he was 12 years old, is conflict between him and his parents, where he's got a very strong sense of vocation and mission, and they're upset because he wasn't with them. And then he begins his ministry. And by that time, his father apparently has passed away. So there would be all the strains around that. And then his ministry takes such an odd, unexpected direction to it that his family at one point comes to take charge of him because it says they think he is out of his mind. You imagine thinking Jesus is crazy and you are going to take him over. And then in John 7, we're told that Jesus's brothers don't believe in him. And another time, Jesus is told that his mother and family is outside of the place where he's teaching. And his response to that is, who is my mother and my brother? Whoever does the will of God. That's my family. And I can only imagine the pain that his biological family would have felt over that one. So, with Jesus, his own family was a situation where there was a lot of stress and a lot of strain over the years. And so he knew what it was that we all know. How do you adjust to living with real people in a family? And when it comes to radical acceptance, these words have been really, really helpful to me. I want to read a little bit from Dallas Willard's book, Divine Conspiracy, where he talks about what's really the opposite of radical acceptance. Oh gosh, Ken Foreman, man, I'm so glad you're here. Murray Gossett, hey Murr, you looker. Bill Willits, Alvin Bibbs, wow, it's just wonderful to see these names. Ken Christensen, man, God bless you and God bless your daughter, Ken. Wow. Um, so these are words that have been a huge gift to me in thinking about condemnation, which is really the opposite of radical acceptance. To condemn somebody is not just to point out where they've done wrong. We all have to do that in our lives with each other sometimes. But of course, I can have two different people that state the same thing about my life. And one of them is trying to help me, but one of them is condemning me. Condemning someone is a posture that they are bad, possibly irreparable, and the world would be better if they were not in it. It is willing the bad of someone. And Dallas is talking about life beyond condemnation. It is a great help, of course, if the absence of condemning has been modeled for us as a way of life. When I was quite a young child, I came to know a wonderful family in southern Missouri. It was the von Allman family of my sister-in-law, Bertha. Now, I think of my own family as a remarkable group of people, very caring and responsible. But the von Allman family, presided over by the grandparents Elmer and Nora, had in them a spirit that I, at least, had never before encountered, and perhaps never since. They did not condemn. They worked hard, were upright almost to a fault, carefully disciplined their children, but I never saw or felt with them the slightest element of condemnation or condemnatory blaming. Among them, I quickly noticed children were to be heard as well as seen. How brutal that saying is, children should be seen and not heard. As I watched their children through the years and grew up along with their grandchildren, the same non-condemnatory spirit seemed on the whole to prevail throughout their lives. I came to live with my older brother, J.I. Willard, and his wife, Bertha, when I was in the second grade, and intermittently thereafter. It was that family, most of all Bertha, that demonstrated to me how one could live a strong and good life without using condemnation to punish and control others. And Dallas writes about how we tend to use condemnation engineering as a way to help the other people in our lives, but rarely do people respond to condemnation by saying, "Oh, that's a really, really helpful observation. Thank you. I will try to change." Never once in all those years or since did she condemn or blame me, though I frequently deserved it. I thought in those years long ago that it was just her way. Now I understand it was her heart, which she learned from her father and mother, and through them from Christ. It is not easy to imagine the real life possibility of living without condemning when we grow up in a world such as ours. And Nancy and I were just talking about when you think about the world of social media, that is a world where condemnation just runs rife. When you think about the political reality in which we live, the political world is one where the language of condemnation never stops. Unfortunately, Dallas says, I did not immediately learn to live in the spirit of my sister-in-law and her family, and continued for many years to use condemnation on those close to me. I could still think of Jesus' teachings as impossible laws. And then this has been so helpful to me. When we enter the life of friendship with the Jesus who is now at work in our universe, we stand in a new reality where condemnation is simply irrelevant. There is before God, Paul says, no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And that's what we have to offer this world and in this Christmas season to our family and beyond, to the social media world and conversation, to have non-condemning spirits. What a gift that is to give our world. And then this, as for the condemnation we may receive from others, I endeavor
Mm.
not to receive it or to just ignore or drop it. I have learned to look at it only while simultaneously holding in full view the fact that Jesus, so far from condemning me, died for me and is right now intervening on my behalf in the heavens. This helps me stay out of counter condemnation with its pain and anger. And how often over these last years that temptation to counter condemn somebody that I feel condemned by has been so vivid. Who is this condemning one, I ask, when set beside that one who does not condemn me? I think I shall not be depressed about this condemnation of me then. I think I shall not be depressed about this condemnation of me then, especially since I know that nothing can separate me from the eternal love of Christ. And in this context, it seems only intelligent just to have done with the whole condemning game. And I'm glad you're here with me because I tend to condemn through withdrawal and kind of a punishing distancing, and nobody will have suffered from that more than you. And I have experienced such a non-condemnation acceptance from you. So glad
Probably
we get to do
depends
this
on the
together.
day.
Well, could be.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything that John just shared, the richness of living in that. And now how do we do it?
Hmm.
And every day we have opportunities to practice
Mhm.
this. Not even practice, every day we have a chance to step into the reality of the kingdom and test it to see if it's true. But probably never so much as a holiday season coming up where we will be in close proximity with lots of different people, some family, some close friends. And I just had a couple of thoughts. I think going into the holiday season or going into the time where we're going to be gathering together, first of all, it helps me to think of categories.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? My cousin Danny just wanted to let me know the top of the Christmas tree lights are not working. I will go fix it, but that's not the
no,
point, Danny, of what we're doing.
Do you mean the star, Danny?
Yeah, it's the star.
Oh, no, that's okay. The star has a little separate thing you have to put on.
No, I'm gonna
But
do
thanks
that
for pointing
right
that
now,
out,
but
Danny.
that's not condemnation.
No, gosh, no. Anyway, thinking of categories. I love that. Danny, why don't you come over here and help us? Going into the holiday season, what are some categories? There will be people that I interact with in person, on the phone, as we share holiday season together, whose politics are very different than mine. So that's one category. These categories just help prepare me so that when I experience something that I want to, in my mind, condemn them for, at least I have a starting place of where to put them in my mind and my heart before I respond. There's going to be people that just talk too much and they're self-referential and everything comes back to them and they just dominate the conversation and nobody else gets time. Or there are people that withdraw and you wonder, why did you even come? You're not engaging. And
Yeah.
tons of different categories. And I find that helpful. And I also think when we understand that whatever difficulty we have in radically accepting someone else, makes it largely possible that we have a hard time radically accepting ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. And so I have those categories in me that somebody else would say, boy, I'm going to spend some time with Nancy. Here are those categories. And then I think the next thing is to bring curiosity to those encounters. Curiosity almost always leads to empathy, and that's always a good direction. But instead of moving to condemnation, or if I'm there, to try to redirect myself back to curiosity. So a number of years ago, when our kids were little, there were 4 or 5 of us young moms that formed a group. And there's something about that time in your life that is very bonding. I'm still in very close touch with a couple of those women. But as is often the case, in a group of 5 women, there was one that just drove me crazy. And this wasn't particularly family, but God gave us family for the purpose of learning how to love and extending that love, not becoming an insular pedestal family, but to train us to love everybody, or as many as we can. So there was a woman in that group. I experienced her as a very black and white person. Everything was either right or wrong. There was no gray. She was pretty condemning. I experienced it that way. So I did a very spiritual thing. I pulled the other girl in the group that I'm very close to and said, doesn't she drive you crazy? Do you just get really bugged by her? And I'll never forget my friend saying, no, I don't really experience her that way. It's like,
Darn.
dang it. Sure you do. Let me give you some more examples. So then I did the next best thing and I told God, doesn't she drive you crazy?
Hmm.
So one time I
What
went,
did God say?
I'm not here to reveal that. He asked me to keep that quiet. The next time we met, the woman that was leading the group asked all of us the next week to bring, come here, Baxter, come say hi to everybody. Come. Asked us to bring our yearbooks from high school. And everybody in the group did. All of us just had a pretty good experience in high school, except this young woman.
Mm.
And she was the last one to share, which was not typical. And she opened up in a pretty raw way, talking about things were going on in her family that made it very difficult to go home.
Mhm.
But when she went to school, she wasn't really part of any group and felt like a video game where you just pong around the outside of things and you can never land. And I remember driving home and having a kind of tearful conversation with God where I sensed he just said, how many times will you have to hear somebody's story before you understand there's almost always a reason?
Mm.
And so to be curious about
Mm.
what might be going on inside them that causes them to act in a way that bothers me, and to realize they may not bother somebody else.
Mm.
So it's not just the fact that they are a person worthy of condemnation. I also think to keep in the back of our mind that as we gather with our family and our friends at holidays, we will be that person for somebody, for maybe a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the humility that that brings, that I hope somebody could reach out to me in curiosity and not condemning. And then I think the last thing I would say is we talk a lot in Christian circles about being called, and it's always this amazing example of a particular work situation, a particular place to live, a particular person we'll marry. But what if we understand that in a very deep way, we are called to this work of radical acceptance? And it's hard. But eventually, on the other side of it, there's a kind of freedom that reminds me the kingdom of God is true.
Mm.
It's real, it's available, and I can live in it.
So we're so grateful to get to share this season for you, to get to share it together with you. And over the next couple of days, probably all of us will be entering into parties, homes, sitting around tables, where the people will be present who will be challenges to us to live with a spirit of non-condemnation. And I loved what you were saying about its connection to self-condemnation.
Yeah.
Because I'll find, particularly around the holidays, I will be aware of the gap between this larger than life, fun, magical moment creating person that I want to be, and the image that I will try to have in my head. And then the reality, which is somebody who is so different than that and often is not quite sure what to do or feels introverted. And then I can tend to just feel self-condemnation at that point and pull away instead of just simply accepting, nope, this is who God has made me to be. And I can seek to be fully present with a willing spirit. God, what do you want to do? Is there something I can say? Is there a way that I can contribute right now? And if not, can I just be be present with a willing and open heart?
And I hope if we all bring some curiosity into our dinner tables over the next couple of days, we'll emerge on the other side a little more convinced that the kingdom of God is real and a little less self-condemning even of ourselves.
Yeah. Yep. So that's the word for the next couple of days. There is now, therefore, no condemnation. And that's a really good word. Love you guys. Thank you so much for writing in. That means a ton.
Yeah.
It's very, very encouraging. And
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year. Bye.
But then we can still read the stuff. You know, it looks like too, right here, there's a big empty patch where there aren't